Welcome to Perimenopausal Athletes and Beyond, a masterclass series bringing experts in mindset, nutrition, training, recovery. I am Janelle Hoogland, your host, and I have the incredible Janelle Morrison here with us today. And welcome, Janelle.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and clearly amongst all these incredible women, the speakers and those who are listening and participating. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I invited you because your story is phenomenal. So I'll share with the listeners where you came really into the public eye. And that was, you were an Ironman, a professional Ironman distance triathlete. You had a life-altering car accident. You woke up in a coma. Mm-hmm. A week later, surgeons told you never race again, maybe never even walk. And then 2 years later, you ran down the finishing chute of Ironman Canada. And you came in third place as a professional. Mm-hmm. And that whole process to take in all that, what happened, the trauma, mm-hmm. Come into the space of that's not going to define who I am. Overcome the physical exertion, the recovery, the nutrition, the mindset, and take on the training. I mean, it's like, and take on the training. It was just a piece of it. It was like, it's all the other stuff too, so much. And then on top of that, it wasn't just that. It was the public really saw what you were doing, and you came into the eye of the public. There is a movie. It's inspiring. And now, and then you continued on your journey. After that time, it was burnout, exhaustion a little bit. But it was still your mission. And this is how I came to know you a little bit better, is as an inspirational speaker. You did a lot of work in different ways in the coaching realm. I want to know a little bit about that. And then you navigated into now where you are at, and you found your calling doing a master's of counseling.
And working in a middle school, hence the background.
And you're working in a middle school.
No problem. There is an opportunity for a solution. Yeah.
Isn't it so perfect? If we all just had a little sign there. Yeah. And so where I want to go with this story is, and what I want to ask you to share is really both the journey of where you were at, and so what you were at in this 2 years of recovery and mindset. And, here we are, athletes in perimenopause and beyond. And we're told, no, aren't you too old for this? No, that is something you did in the past. Why do you have this goal? Or we're told that's selfish. You don't have time for that. Or we're told, yeah, but it's perimenopause. Maybe that's just the way it is. We're told all these things of what we should do, and you broke out of that, but you also have learned incredible lessons there as you now are older, 11 years later. Mm-hmm. And what would you share? What is important to you? What would you want people to know as they take on identity, take on who do I want to be, take on physical goals that seem insurmountable, but still have it within us? Big questions, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, those are huge questions. Were you finished?
Yeah, I'm done my intro. I guess we can, if it helps, I can just say, let's start at the accident and how you see it now. Because it's going to look different now. Maybe I project, I don't know. Maybe it's the same for you, but how you are in your, where you are in your life now to where you were then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is huge. And, like we've talked about before, 11 years is a really long time. There's a lot that happens in 11 years. And
Mhm.
when I go back to that time period in my life, of my recovery, um, I was I was in a state like that was trauma. That accident was trauma. And I woke up from that traumatic experience in the hospital in an ICU bed with doctors and surgeons saying you're never going to walk again. You're never going to race again. And this was just after I had left my teaching job the year prior to put everything in like everything in the basket to race full time. So that my identity was totally wrapped around this racing, like who I am as an athlete. And it also was a way for me to feel like I was succeeding in life and that I was okay, that I was enough, that I was
Mhm.
important, that I was valued, all of these things that are so important for us. But it was my way of feeling that through seeing, good race results. If I had a good race result, there was this time where I felt like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm a good person. I'm okay. And it lasted sometimes maybe a week at the best. But for the most part, it was, well, sometime between the end of that race and a week. I don't know the exact time that would have been, but I felt good. There was this, oh, I'm okay. But if I had a race that was disappointing, like I was, and I still am. I am so good at beating myself to like oblivion,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I had to have these results. So part of it, when I woke up from that coma, part of my desire to get back again was my identity was totally wrapped around it. But also, like, who am I going to be as a human being if I'm not an athlete? How am I going to be able to prove myself? And I wasn't consciously thinking that. I wasn't
No.
going, oh, how am I going to prove myself? Like,
Yeah.
that's not where it was. But I can look back on it now and go, well, that's where it was. Like, I needed that. I believed that I needed these results. And so it was very intense, Tennille,
Mhm.
very intense. And you can see that in the film too. Like, it was just like my focus was there. And then when I made the comeback at Ironman Canada, which it wasn't actually my first race back, but it was the big race,
Yeah.
it was the big one that got the people's attention, I guess. I made that comeback, and then a couple of months later, like shortly after that, things kind of fell apart for me. It was my boyfriend and I broke up. And that might seem silly, but that was the person that I completely depended on at that time. That was my support system. That was my person. And I hadn't involved myself with a lot of other people. I was pretty focused and introverted. So when he left, I felt like my whole world kind of collapsed.
Mm.
And then I started to get injuries. Like, I had this kind of magical window of training just before Ironman Canada where I was able to really put in 3 months of good training. And it just kind of appeared. But then after that race, like, my body just was like, we've had enough. And so I actually went to Texas to race and was injured. That was the beginning of the real injuries. And I went to Mexico by myself to just process things. And that was the first time that I started to feel, and it was so uncomfortable. Like, I was just in this spot, like, what has just happened? Um, but it was also so needed. Like, I could feel my system starting to just slow down. Like, I would watch the sunrise and the sunset, and I got back from, I know I'm a little convoluted. I'm not convoluted, but I'm talking a lot, but I just really want to explain this experience and the intensity of it. When I got back from Mexico, I went to, that was the film premiere. And I've never shared this before, that I flew back from Mexico to Calgary for the night of this film premiere. I'd never seen the film. The day of the film premiere, I sat down in the producer's living room and a bunch of us were watching this film. And I'm literally watching this entire 2 years unfold before my eyes going like, oh my God. And there were parts that I could see like, wow, that really was amazing, Janelle, like, holy crap, that's awesome. And there were other parts of me that were going, oh my God, I can't believe people are going to see this. Like, oh my God. And this film is going to go live with hundreds of people coming downtown Calgary to watch this. And like, it was just so much. It was so much. And the Q&A, I will never forget. We watched the film and this Q&A happened and it was a blur. I don't remember most of those questions, but I do remember one guy stood up and said, I'm wondering why you didn't smile at the finish line.
Mm.
And it was like this gutted experience. It was this moment where I was like, how do people see me? Like, how do people see me? This is so much. Like, I'm just starting to process this trauma myself. And now everybody else has seen how I processed the trauma. And it was so intense. So I don't know, it looked like you wanted to say something there, but I just really wanted to share like the processing of the fear of being seen.
What I hear from you, and I hope that people can hear themselves in this story, and this is why I asked you, is that it's a story that we can all relate to in a different way. And why I believe this is because I don't have your story, but I have a story that is about identity, being enough, striving, having this sense of who are we right now, and is that really me? And do I have room to create something different?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I hear, and these are the questions as we go into perimenopause and beyond. It is about trying to figure out, who am I now? Who do I get to be? And how do I get how do I create the possibility to be something different, even though it might be entirely, not what I used to do, or what is expected of me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So beautiful. Can I expand on that?
Yeah.
So I just love that, like, what is expected of me. And I think that was so much of like what drove me, and it was amazing. Like, it's amazing how we can recover. It's amazing what our bodies can do. It's incredible. But there was this idea of what was expected of me. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of years ago, so when the pandemic hit, I was TOCing in Victoria and I had just started my master's. And
that TOC is teaching on call.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, teacher on call, as I would like teacher on call in elementary schools, and working on my master's. And then the pandemic hit. So TOCs, teachers on call, were no longer being used. So basically I was looking at like a 6-month time where I didn't know what I was going to do for a living. I just started this master's program. Living is expensive in Victoria. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And not too long afterwards, a job came up in Fort St. John, BC, where I grew up. Talk about not expected, right? So it was this real battle. It was like, well, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I can't go back to my hometown and have this job, which was a perfect job for me in my field. And it was like spending time with my family. But it was just like totally not what I expected from life. But it was this real, like, something just hit over that week or two when I was making the decision of whether to take the job or not, which I was offered, was this sense, it was almost like my body started to go into this sigh of relief. Like things started, like I felt softer. And it was like, okay, I wonder what would happen if I just followed this soft feeling, if I just followed this sigh of relief feeling. And I took a plunge, which took some courage to take that plunge, to like really go, okay, you know what, maybe this is not going to go how I expected.
Be okay going home. It's like moving back in with your parents.
Not the plan A. But I made that decision, and I will say, and I'm still, like, this was a year ago, so I'm still in that journey. But after making that decision, it was just this empowering moment, and has continued, where I can choose differently. And when I choose what I didn't necessarily expect it to look like, it feels so good. Like there's a peace that I could never have expected. And it took a lot of humility for me. Like I was always like, I want to be, you know, the star of the show, and that this whole, like, I was very like,
I'm the movie star.
Attention, you know, like bring it. And but it was this like, maybe it's not that. And it's just this like, I have never been happier with having conversations with people that really mean something, and connection, and all these things that I kind of brushed to the side in order to do what I thought I was supposed to do. And I feel like right now, life is just really, I don't want to say life is just beginning. I mean, life is a continuation, but life is really in a place that I feel like I'm coming home. And which is ironic because I have come home, but I feel like I'm coming home to myself. Because it's not about what somebody else expects. It's not about living up to an identity which I've formulated from the outside in. It's from the inside. It's coming from the inside out.
I so want to just hold that spot. That's where I want to hold the end, because I think that that's where we are. I think where we want to go, what we want to create for this year, what we want to do, how do we navigate this, what we're in the space of COVID, in the space of change, and is to find our power within, and to know that we can create our identity and create our possibility. And I love it. I want to just bring back one thing you said, is the softness that you found the power. You found your own self in a softness that it isn't always about grit. It's not about determination. It's not about force. It's not about the push, because you tried that. You did it and you were successful.
And I'm alive today because of it.
And you're alive today because of it. And it served you, but it doesn't always have to serve us. And so thank you.
Thank you.
I do have 3 rapid fire questions that I have to ask. So,
shoot, go for it.
Give me one moment of courage.
I
mean, you've just said so many, but anyway.
Oh, one moment of courage. My God. I'll give an example. I was going to just give it like an abstract, but I really want to give an example. When I speak out and say what I believe as my truth, there's something that, it's so scary. It is so scary to do that. And I think it's really scary at this time right now. Like we're living in a time that is very divided, and no matter what your truth is, it feels like it's even harder to speak your truth, whatever that is. And I've recently had an experience where I just like spoke my truth, like vulnerable, like my truth, my story, not because it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the truth, the 10 commandments of truth or something, but it's my truth. And I think that like the pressure, and this isn't just this time, but I think like we can mute our voices or suppress our own voices because we are afraid of what other people are going to think. But when there is something that there is to say it without making other people wrong or bad or anything like that, but just to speak the truth. Oh man, that's such, so it takes so much courage. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's been something for me recently. And I also see so much courage around me of people just finding ways to speak their truth
Mhm. Yeah.
in a time where I think we need to hear each other's truth more than ever.
That's powerful. So I encourage, like, take that in. And I do follow you. I do know who you are, and I do know what you're speaking to. And I do believe that it takes incredible courage to speak. And so we all have a voice, and to know the power that and the influence and the impact that our voices can have for others in a positive way, bringing compassion where we need it.
And I just want to say too, like it comes back, like when we're speaking our truth, I'm not going to say when I am speaking my truth, there is a softness.
Yeah.
Courage, there's a strength. Oh, there's strength, but there's a softness when it's coming from the strength, just strength, and the softness isn't there. It's like it's pushing into something. There's something that is, it's like a resistance, but when that softness meets strength, oh boy.
I love you. Anyway, okay, let's carry on. Okay, curiosity. What is one thing you're curious about right now?
Yeah. Sorry, what was the next one?
What is one thing you're curious about right now?
I kind of comes back to what I kind of alluded to. I'm really curious how we're going to band together as human beings to move through what we're facing right now together. I'm curious how we will come together.
Yeah, and I like it, how we will come together. And the last one is, what is one thing you are grateful for right now?
I am so grateful for you and having this conversation again. I'm just going to be really honest. You and I had this conversation previously, and I had this feeling afterwards. I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure. And your willingness to redo this and have this conversation again is just like, it just speaks to your rawness, and you're willing to go that extra mile in order to serve.
Thank you.
So I'm grateful for what you're doing, and I'm grateful for this conversation.
I am so grateful, and I really truly believe it is meant to be in the world. So thank you for giving us your time and your energy and your passion, and the things you've learned, and that we can all share in and realize for ourselves as well. So thank you so much.